I'm Grandpa Dave, and I wanted to take a couple of minutes to tell you about our line of Grandpa Dave's plant food that's all made from fish poo primarily, and whole fish and things like that. The Grandpa Dave's line of product dates back to about the time that COVID was a big deal in our country. And I had COVID, and I had a lot of I had pneumonia and then a lot of brain fog that came with that. Along with that, it hit me really hard, and there was a time we didn't know if I was even going to pull through. But after the after effects for that were that it took me a long time to learn how to do almost anything. I mean, I couldn't write the alphabet, that kind of thing. I really struggled. But as I began to come along, I needed something here at the farm to take my interest, to get my brain working, something to do to be creative and to get those neurons wired back together again. I like to tell people I used to be smart, and now this is all you get. So I started working with an aquaponics system, if you will. I literally got a barrel full of goldfish and a plant bed, and hooked up a pump and started running the goldfish water through the plant bed and create an aquaponics system. Just an experiment to see how it would go. And actually, it was reasonably successful. I grew some tomatoes and things like that, and it was very, very small scale, but it was just something for my brain to do. How to pump the water through, how to keep it circulating, how to oxygenate it, and so on, and just taking care of it. But I learned early on that I had a problem. If I had too many fish and not yet enough plants, then I still had to filter out the fish waste. And if I had too little fish and too much plants, it still wasn't enough food for the plants, and I had to add some sort of a plant food source, fertilizer source of some sort to help the plants, which could potentially be detrimental to the fish. And I went back and forth with that, and I did a lot of things. Over time, I got into tilapia. Tilapia is a much larger fish and creates a lot of fish waste. And tilapia are actually known for their fish poop, for their waste. It actually is very good. If you go to any big greenhouse system, you'll often find they raise tilapia. They're a very hardy fish. They're hard to hurt. They live well in dirty water. But they also produce the kind of nutrients that you need for plant food. And so I started growing tilapia, and they grow really fast and really big. So in the process of growing tilapia, we learned a lot more about the fish. I learned a lot more about the plant growing, but we still had the same problem of too many fish. You have to filter out the waste, and you have to purge it out of the system. And that's easy enough to do. There's a lot of systems for filtering fish waste. But then when it came time to have a large abundance of plants, I needed more fish, and I needed to grow them faster. And I thought, I'm never going to find this balance. No matter how large I scale this system, I can't find this balance. I'm either filtering out the fish waste, or I'm trying to add additional nutrients to the plants. And I thought, okay, how can I bottle up the nutrients when there's an overabundance of fish and an underabundance of plants? How can I separate out the nutrients from the fish and save it for later when the plants get big and numerous and I don't have enough fish? I can add it to the plants, and it shouldn't hurt the fish. Well, that worked in varying degrees. It was okay, but it got me through. And so I started thinking, okay, how do I find some consistency in this? There's got to be a way to measure this. There's got to be a way to keep it consistent. There's got to be a way to know how much plant growth I've got. There's got to be a way to know how much fish I've got, how big to grow the fish. There's just a whole lot of science involved in that. And it was good for my brain. It was something to think about. So I got good at this. Over time, I started bottling up the liquid fish waste, and it would go through a whole process. It wasn't just bottling up the fish poo, but I was actually processing it with some liquid sugars and some yeast and things like that, and brewing it with air and growing up the microbes in a very rich way. And I was finding actually the bottled product was better for the plants than just the raw fish waste pumping through the system. So I separated the system. Now I've got tanks and tanks of these tilapia that are growing like mad. And over here I've got plants that I'm running a separate water system through. And I thought, okay, I'm onto something. This really works. I've got a liquid plant food that's made from the fish waste that I've modified. I've increased the strength of the microbials in there. The beneficial bacteria now are stronger than what they were, and it's going through this plant bed, and my plants were absolutely going mad. They were just going crazy. I thought, okay, this is cool. I'm onto something now. I like this. And I ended up with Grandpa Dave's Fantastic Solutions. And it's just these small bottles, and as much as even gallon jugs we went to. And we started selling the product because more people realized the benefit of this rich tilapia waste fish product that was bottled up, and I could ship it out to them, and they were putting it in their aquaponics system, or they were putting it on the dirt and just growing like mad. And so we put it on our garden out back. We used it on everything, and we found this stuff really works. And maybe I'm onto something here. And then little by little, my brain started to kick in. So we started marketing Grandpa Dave's liquid Fantastic Solutions to the world, and it did pretty well. The problem we ran into is shipping gallon jugs is expensive. And worse than that, when you've got a bottle of liquid like this, and it sits on the shelf for very long at all, the cap is tight on there, and the microbes are still alive. They're still growing, they're still expanding. So I'd have bottles that would swell and bust and burst all over the place. And then, it would sit on the shelf for a year or sit on the shelf for 6 months, it would start to go bad. And you would start to get that stink out of it, and you know that you're actually maybe creating more harm than good. And I thought, okay, this isn't working. This is a great product for me to use at home. This is a great product for my friends that I can take it to or ship a short distance, or somebody who really, really needs it and understands it. But to create a product that's really available for the mass public, this isn't working very good. And amongst that, I also started working with the whole chopped fish. I've got some here. This little guy is just a frozen fish. And he's actually a fairly small, for tilapia, that's a fairly small fish. But it's frozen, and it's hard. And so I can take that and chop it up, grind it up, and put it right in with a slurry of the liquid plant food that I was making. Again, wow, there's a product that actually works incredibly well. And when you put whole fish, the nitrogen and so on that's in that, it's just absolutely incredible how good that is for your plants. You probably remember stories from when you were a kid in school about them talking about the Indians taking and putting, minnows or small fish in the hole before they plant the seeds, and then the plants would grow so well for the whole season because of that dead fish that's in there decomposing. The amount of plant food that's available from a whole fish that's all chopped up is phenomenal. Now you take this guy and you mix it in with the fish poo, which I'll tell you, the nutrients that are in fish poo is incredible. Now I'm onto something. And I also, like a lot of people, there's a number of products on the market now that actually use whole fish, and they grind it up and they create what's called an emulsion. They either boil it or they soak it for like 60 days, and it goes through this whole chemical process and increases the microbials. Good products, they do, they work well, but they've got the same problem with shelf life and shipping and things like that. And so now they have to add chemicals to it to slow down the microbial growth once you get it there, to lower the pH, to slow it down so that they can bottle it up and ship it to you and allow that to sit on the shelf. And the chemicals that they use to slow down the microbes, the chemicals they use to make it shippable, is not very good for your plants. It'll survive, it'll work, it'll help your plants grow, but you're creating a negative effect at the same time you're creating a positive effect. I wasn't willing to do that. I looked at it, I experimented with it a little bit, and it works, but I just thought, I'm not, giving you these chemicals to put in the liquid to basically kill the microbes temporarily so that I can ship it to you. I'm just shipping you a dead product. Believe me, if I'm going to send you a dead product, I'll just box this thing up and send it to you. Believe me, you don't want that. That is one stinky job. One of the advantages, by the way, of COVID is I've lost my sense of smell. And so my grandkids come out here and say, Grandpa, that dead fish stinks. It probably does. I wouldn't know. So this is the perfect business for a guy who doesn't have a sense of smell, because when I'm actually in the process of making this fish food, or I'm sorry, this plant food, it'll stink up the whole processing room. So I had to make a decision. At some point I had to decide, do I want to make a business out of this? Do I want something that's available on the retail market that really, really works for people? Or do I just want to shut the whole thing down? I could raise a few fish, take care of my own gardens, take care of my own grow beds, have the best vegetables in 3 counties. But to make a business out of something like this, I just thought, I just wasn't sure. And one day, I've got a day job, and that gives me a lot of time to think. And one day I was working on my job, and it kind of hit me. You know what would really work is if I could create a dry product from fish poop. Well, there's a challenge for you, because fish poop, and I'll show you a picture here, is these wormy looking strings of poop that come out of the bottom of the fish, and it floats to the surface for a while, and then it goes down to the bottom, and it gets sucked up by my filtration system. And you got these swirl filters like a lot of people use. It gets up into that, and it goes to the bottom and lays on the bottom. You can just imagine. And trying to, I mean, this is liquid. It's mostly water, and then this mud that comes out of the fish. And how to make that into a dry product? Well, I started experimenting. And the first thing you think of is a dehydrator. Okay, I'm going to put it in the dehydrator runs at 120, 150, whatever degrees, 180 degrees, whatever you want to run it at, and it kills all the microbes. You start measuring the microbes, put it on the microscope, and see what's in there. You just killed all the beneficial bacteria. You've done a lot of damage. Yeah, some of it's still live. Some of it will still work. You can get away with it. It'll still work. But you've killed the best of it. You really have. You take this whole fish and you grind it up and you run it through a dehydrator. You have lost so much of the benefits for that. It just ruins it. So there's a thing called freeze drying, and I got one of those freeze dryers, and they work. By the way, they're on the website. They work really, really well. If you want to dry your vegetables, if you want to dry fruit and make candy out of it, things like that, absolutely phenomenal. But at the temperatures that they freeze dry, you've done the exact same thing. You've killed the beneficial microbes. You've killed that bacteria that's so important for your plants. There's no way for this to work. It's just not. You can't dry a product and maintain all that life, all that vigor that I had in the liquid format. And so I struggled with it. I really did. I had a few friends who were growing cannabis pot with this fish-based product, and they absolutely love this. There's something about the fish waste from tilapia, and I don't know what it is. I'm not an expert in growing pot. That's not my thing. But my friends came to me and said, "Don't stop. Please don't stop. Keep doing this. Bottle it up. I'll buy it from you. Even if that's all you do, just keep me stocked up with the liquid plant food for cannabis, because this stuff is working. And my plants are unlike anything I've ever seen. They're unlike anything that anybody else has got. Keep doing it for me." And I'm like, I just don't know if it's worth it. And I struggled, and I've got this whole laboratory practically set up in my barn where I experimented with all kinds of solutions to try to create a dry product. I mean, sun drying, air drying, fans, you name it, I have tried it. And in every occasion, you stick that under a microscope and you've killed the microbes to the extent that it's not worth it. So the cannabis guys would come back to me and say, "I'll buy the liquid. I just make the liquid. I'll buy the liquid. It works good. Keep doing it. Please don't stop." And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, it costs you can hear the fish tanks running the other side of this wall. It costs a lot of money to run those big tanks, and I've got a huge system in there now with a lot of fish and a lot of poop. And I didn't know what to do. I really didn't know what to do. And so in my day job, like I say, I've got a lot of time to think. And thinking is what I did. And then one day, it hit me. It hit me like a ton of bricks. You know, that light bulb on the head kind of thing in the cartoons? It hit me like a ton of bricks. I thought immediately, an idea hit me from a totally different industry, a whole different way of not the food industry where you dehydrate food or not dehydrate, all of that. Totally different. I thought, how do they dry stuff? I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you. I love this. I'm excited about this. This is so cool. But I don't tell anybody how I'm doing this, okay? Me and my dog ain't talking, you know. It came to me how to dry this. And I couldn't wait to get home and start experimenting again. And I tore my laboratory here apart, my whole workstation. I started working on all this liquid here. I started pulling this out. I started pulling out the mud. I'll show you a picture of the mud that I get from the fish tanks. I started working on this, and I'm going through, and I'm thinking, I'm not going to do the air dry. I'm not going to do the dehydrate. I'm not going to do the freeze dry. I know what to do. I know how to extract that water out of the system and maintain just the solids, just the dry solids. And I got to tell you, I mean, you can tell, I'm excited. I'm excited. This is the coolest thing in the world. I've got this system to dry this out, and I'm just so excited about it because it works. It works, and it works so good that it just excites me to no end. And so now I take this fish poo slurry, what I call this liquid fish poop. It's this brown mud that you see in the picture, and I can grind up this fish and chop this. What a stinky, disgusting job that is. I could cut up the fish, I could grind it up, I put all this in there, and now I'm getting into things like kelp and bat guano and just all kinds of molasses, things like that are in there. Powdered eggshells for calcium. There's magnesium in there. There is so much stuff now that to make a variety of different products based on what their needs are. In other words, a green leaf has a different need than a tomato plant. By the time they come out where they're starting to fruit or starting to create the vegetables, you need a different kind of product than you do just for the green leaves that you might need for a houseplant or for cannabis or something like that. Now, cannabis is a different animal all by itself, and so I do that a little bit different than all the other plant food products. But I was so excited about the way that I can dry this, and I played with it for almost a year. I kept trying different formulas and different ways of drying it and different speeds. And I'm checking this darn thing under the microscope, and it works, and it works, and it works, and I'm keeping all of the bacteria alive. All the microbes are still alive in that dry product. So as soon as I re-moisturize it, as soon as I put it in the ground or put it in water and check it, it's alive. It's alive, and it works, and I can't get over how excited I am about this. So now I've been bagging this up as a dry product. And this dry, let me show you this dry product. This is it. Right here. Take a look. This is just all it is right there. I keep the little packets in there. There is, in this particular one right here, there is ground up fish. There's some chunks right there. There's some ground up fish. There is, this is almost 100% fish poop. This is dried out fish poop. And in this case, there is also dried out and ground up fish, whole fish, just like the dead fish I showed you just a second ago. That's all this is. That's all that's in this bowl right here. This whole bowl full is nothing but fish poop. Isn't that cool? It's just fish poop. There's nothing else there. It's just fish poop. And I ground up dead fish, all right? And so it took a lot of experimenting with different quantities, how much poop versus how much whole fish, how much per, versus things like kelp and things like that. And I've had to have some help on that kind of thing, some from professionals. And I've got a product now. I mean, I've been at this for a while. For the cannabis people, oh my goodness, they love this stuff. Oh my goodness, they love this stuff. Now I grind it a little finer for them. It's more of a powder than what you saw right there was kind of chunky a little bit. Doesn't really matter. It doesn't change anything. But the cool thing with the dry is when you put it in the dirt, you put it in the soil for your plant, and it begins to decompose in the dirt, which means it's a slow release product. When you use the liquid product, it was instantly, it would go to the roots and poof, it was, sucking that up as if it was water, which is good, but it absorbs all those nutrients. Boom, you got this explosion of growth, and then it goes back to just pulling from the dirt, because what else you gonna add? Where with the dry product, it's a slow release product. It gets in there, and over time it's decomposing, and all that fish poop and all that fish nutrients and those dead fish and all of the other ingredients that are in there are slowly working their way into the roots of that plant. And that plant is doing so well. And so for the cannabis people, there's nothing like it on the market. There's just nothing. There's some good products on the market, fish farms, all this kind of stuff, but there is nothing like Grandpa Dave's dry fish poop mixed with whole fish and whatever it needs for their particular variation. So if you're doing leafy greens, if you're doing fruit and veggie, if you're doing just general purpose, we've even got a plant RX. We formulated a product, and I've used this myself, and that's why I actually got onto it. We had some berry bushes that they were neglected, and they were dried out, they were dying, the leaves were brown. I think I've got a video on it someplace. And I thought, well, I'm gonna try some stuff. And I came in here to the lab, I started working around here and putting some stuff together and watching what it did, the microbes and things, and I'm thinking, I'm onto something. I think I've got something. So I created a product called Grandpa Dave's RX, Plant RX, and I put it in the dirt with those basically dead vines, and oh my goodness, you wouldn't believe how they came back to life. Just absolutely came back to life. So I'm onto something. I've got a product that nobody else has, and I've got a way of drying it that nobody else. I don't believe anybody in the world is doing this. I don't think anybody's figured this out. Now that the problem is it's stupid simple. It's stupid simple. But nobody's thinking of it because it comes from a whole different industry. This doesn't come from a food industry or anything like that. It's a whole different, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, but I can't tell you. If I told you, everybody would be doing it, right? So I'm just so excited because I've this evolution that I've come through from a Goldfish aquaponics system on a little tiny barrel, okay, all the way to a product that's made from dry fish poop and dry, dead, ground up fish, whole. And by the way, we don't, you could eat the meat and then process the rest of it, which is fine, and that's good. But we actually process out whole fish. You saw the one I showed you there. I take that whole thing with the meat and everything because the omega fats that are in the meat and things like that are really, really good for your plants. And so I do eat the tilapia, and I do grind up the waste from it and all that, but many of the products, almost all of the products, have the meat and everything still intact in the grindings because the omega-3s that are in that, the brains are in that. I know that sounds disgusting, but there's an important reason for that. There's the bone is in there. There's bone meal in there. By the way, we actually have bone meal, blood meal additional as well for some of the products, depending on what it's for. Again, the cannabis people just absolutely love this stuff. That's probably without a doubt, our greatest sales are going to cannabis. So I'm excited about Grandpa Dave's, and I'm excited about where it's going, where it's come from, and where it's going. And I don't know what next year will bring. We're getting better at shipping and shipping rates and all of those kind of things that come with business. And we're having fun with it. And I get a kick out of the grandkids coming in here and say, Grandpa, it stinks in here, because the processing room sometimes can be a stinky place. But when we process that fish poo slurry, that thick, heavy mud, it's just barrels full, and I have a lot of fish, barrels full of just fish poop, just barrels full. And we take it through and we either add the fish or we don't, we add the other ingredients or we don't, depending on what the product is. And then I put it through that process, and I just love it. I put it through that process, I dry it down, and I end up with this. I'll show it to you as best I can here. It's like a cookie. Usually you can see right through it. Let's see if you can see light. You can see light through it. See how that turns out? It actually is very, very porous. You can see all the way through it. There's just little crumbles. See that? And then I'll just run this through a grinder, just a regular mill like you have on any farm, a grinding mill. So how it gets to that condition, that's the secret sauce to this whole thing. And that's what I'm so very, very proud of. But the reality is, and what matters to you when you're growing your cannabis or you're growing your product, what matters to you is that I'm giving you a product unlike anything. I believe this, unlike anything in the world. I don't think anybody has created a fully dry product that's got all of the nutrients still intact. I don't think anybody is taking fish poop, which comes out of fish tanks, water, and creates a fully dry product from the poop. I mean, drying the fish, I suppose anybody could do that in some form or another, but I'm taking that liquid, I'm separating the water out, and I'm retaining only the poop and only the fish and the other product, in the single product, bagging it up, shipping it to you. So that's our story. That's our backstory. Jump on the website. There's all kinds of information about the details of what you need for what product. What I just showed you there is called Bloom and Blossom. It's made for your flowers and anything that blooms. It's formulated. It's the same thing with slightly different formulations. So there's different formulas for different things. Grab some, give it a try. I promise you, you're going to love this stuff. You are absolutely going to love it because you can keep it in a cool, dry place and it'll last you for a long, long time. If you need larger quantities, let me know. But right now we sell it in 6-ounce and 12-ounce bags, and that goes a long way. You can do a lot with that. So thanks for stopping. Thanks for listening for a few minutes. Thanks for sharing with maybe my foolishness, my enjoyment, because Grandpa Dave here, I went from not even being able to write the alphabet to creating a product that I don't believe anybody else in the world has done. And I'm proud of that. I'm happy with it, and I can't wait to share it with you. If you're growing cannabis or if you're growing flowers or fruit trees, get on my website. Get some in your hands and let's start using it. Have a great day.